Welcome to the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast, where we guide you through everything you need to know for your certification exam. Whether you're just starting or looking to refine your knowledge, this course will set you up for success. Brought to you by baremetalcyber.com. Let's get started. As organizations grow in their use of AWS, governance becomes essential. Governance ensures that teams can innovate while still adhering to business rules, security requirements, and compliance standards. Without it, cloud environments can quickly become chaotic, with costs rising unpredictably and risks left unchecked. A strong governance model gives leaders control at scale while still allowing teams the freedom to use AWS services effectively. For the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam, you don't need to know the technical details of every governance tool, but you should understand the purpose of these services and how they help manage AWS environments responsibly. AWS Organizations is the primary service for managing multiple accounts. Instead of running everything under a single AWS account, Organizations allows businesses to create and group accounts while applying policies across them. This approach gives structure, enabling different teams or departments to have their own accounts without losing central oversight. For example, a company may create separate accounts for finance, development, and production, all managed under a single organization. On the exam, remember that AWS Organizations provides centralized account management at scale. Within AWS Organizations, accounts can be grouped into organizational units, or OUs. OUs make it easier to apply policies and controls to groups of accounts that share common requirements. For example, an enterprise might place all development accounts into one OU with looser restrictions and all production accounts into another with stricter policies. OUs create hierarchy and flexibility, much like folders on a computer organize files. For the exam, remember that OUs simplify governance by grouping accounts under shared policies. Service Control Policies, or SCPs, are a powerful governance tool within AWS Organizations. SCPs define what actions accounts can and cannot perform, serving as a boundary for permissions. For example, an SCP might prevent any account in an OU from launching resources outside a specific region. SCPs apply to all users and roles within an account, regardless of their IAM permissions. This ensures central governance rules are enforced consistently. On the exam, know that SCPs restrict what accounts can do and act as organization-wide guardrails. Consolidated billing is another feature of AWS Organizations. It allows multiple accounts to share one bill, simplifying payment and unlocking volume discounts. This is particularly useful for large organizations with many departments. Consolidated billing also enables chargeback, where costs are tracked back to the teams or projects responsible for them. For example, tags applied to resources in one account can show up in reports that allocate costs back to business units. On the exam, remember that consolidated billing provides financial efficiency and transparency across accounts. Landing zones are an architectural concept for setting up secure, governed multi-account environments. They provide a predefined structure of accounts, policies, and controls that organizations can use as a starting point. The process of account vending automatically, creating accounts that follow company rules, is part of this design. For example, a new development team may receive its own pre-configured AWS account provisioned through account vending. On the exam, know that landing zones and account vending provide scalable, consistent foundations for multi-account setups. AWS Control Tower builds on organizations by automating landing zones. It provides an easy way to set up new accounts with best practices already in place. Control Tower applies guardrails, enforces logging, and integrates governance services automatically. This allows organizations to scale quickly while maintaining security and compliance. For exam purposes, remember that Control Tower simplifies the setup and governance of multi-account environments, making it easier to grow responsibly. Identity management at scale is supported by AWS IAM Identity Center, formerly known as AWS Single Sign-On. It allows organizations to centrally manage user access across multiple AWS accounts and applications. Instead of creating separate IAM users in each account, Identity Center enables employees to log in once and access everything they need. This reduces administrative burden and improves security by centralizing identity management. On the exam, know that IAM Identity Center provides unified sign-on and access control across accounts. Tag policies extend governance by ensuring resources are labeled consistently. Tags are key value pairs applied to AWS resources, such as Department HR or Project Website. Tag policies enforce standards, ensuring teams use approved tags. This makes cost tracking, compliance, and automation easier. For example, without consistent tagging, it would be difficult to identify which department owns a particular server. On the exam, remember that tag policies are governance tools that standardize resource labeling across accounts. Guardrails in AWS governance can be preventative or detective. Preventative guardrails stop users from doing disallowed actions in the first place, such as an SCP preventing resource creation in unapproved regions. Detective guardrails identify violations after they occur, such as AWS config detecting an unencrypted storage bucket. Together, preventative and detective guardrails create a layered governance model. On the exam, remember that guardrails are policies and controls that enforce compliance proactively or by monitoring. CloudTrail organization trails extend auditing across multiple accounts. Instead of setting up CloudTrail separately in each account, organizations can create one trail that collects API activity logs from all accounts in an organization. This centralizes visibility and ensures nothing is missed. For example, security teams can track actions across hundreds of accounts in one place. For exam purposes, remember that CloudTrail organization trails provide unified logging for governance and compliance. AWS Config Conformance Packs allow organizations to apply collections of compliance rules across accounts. Instead of writing rules individually, conformance packs bundle best practices and apply them consistently. For example, a conformance pack may enforce encryption on all storage buckets across the organization. This makes compliance management more efficient and scalable. On the exam, know that conformance packs are pre-packaged sets of config rules for compliance monitoring. Centralized logging is another best practice in governance. By collecting logs from multiple accounts into one central account, organizations make it easier to detect issues and analyze activity. This also simplifies audits, since compliance teams only need to look in one place. Centralized logging often uses services like CloudWatch, CloudTrail, and S3 together. For the exam, remember that centralized logging provides efficiency and visibility across accounts. AWS Security Hub provides organization-wide security insights. It aggregates findings from multiple AWS services, such as GuardDuty, Inspector, and Macie, and presents them in a central dashboard. Security Hub can be configured to pull data across all accounts in an organization, giving leaders a single view of their security posture. For exam purposes, know that Security Hub unifies security monitoring and compliance reporting across accounts. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. One of the strongest arguments for using a multi-account strategy is isolation. By separating workloads into different accounts, organizations limit the blast radius of mistakes or breaches. If one account is compromised, its impact is contained and does not spread to others. This isolation also improves compliance, since sensitive workloads can be placed in tightly controlled accounts. On the exam, remember that multi-account setups increase security and resilience by isolating risks. Environment segmentation is another best practice. Development, testing, and production environments should not share the same account, as this can create risks of accidental changes or data leaks. With AWS organizations, each environment can live in its own account under the same umbrella. This ensures that developers can experiment in a sandbox environment without affecting production systems. For exam purposes, know that segmenting environments across accounts enforces better control and reduces mistakes. Networking in multi-account environments is often managed with a hub-and-spoke model using AWS Transit Gateway. Transit Gateway acts as a central hub that connects multiple VPCs across accounts. This avoids the complexity of setting up numerous VPC peering connections. For example, instead of connecting 10 VPCs individually, each one connects to the Transit Gateway hub. On the exam, remember that Transit Gateway simplifies network management in large, multi-account environments. Cross-account access is another important concept. Instead of duplicating IAM users across multiple accounts, organizations can use IAM roles to grant temporary access across accounts. For example, a security team in a central account might assume roles in other accounts to review resources. This approach reduces duplication, improves security, and simplifies governance. On the exam, know that cross-account IAM roles allow secure access without creating separate users in each account. Centralized key management is achieved through AWS KMS. While each account can manage its own keys, many organizations prefer a central account for key creation and management. Other accounts can then use those keys securely for encryption. This improves control and auditing, since sensitive keys are consolidated in one place. On the exam, remember that KMS can be centralized across accounts to simplify encryption governance. The shared services account pattern is another common strategy. Certain services like directory management, monitoring, or logging are deployed once in a central account and shared across others. For example, centralized DNS or logging systems might be housed in a shared account. This reduces duplication and ensures consistency across the organization. For the exam, know that shared service accounts provide efficiency by consolidating common infrastructure. Cost governance is supported by tools like AWS Budgets and the Cost and Usage Report. These can be applied at the organizational level to track spending across accounts. For example, each business unit may receive budget alerts when their account exceeds a threshold. The Cost and Usage Report provides detailed billing data, enabling chargebacks to departments. On the exam, remember that AWS Budgets and the Cost and Usage Report support cost governance in multi-account setups. Policy inheritance and exceptions are part of how AWS organizations works. Service control policies can be applied at the top level and inherited by all accounts, ensuring consistent rules. However, exceptions can be created by applying different SCPs at lower-level organizational units. This provides flexibility to enforce strict rules broadly while allowing certain accounts more freedom. On the exam, know that SCPs apply hierarchically and support exceptions through OU structure. Automated account provisioning makes governance scalable. Tools like Control Tower allow new accounts to be created with pre-configured guardrails, logging, and policies. This removes the manual effort of setting up accounts one by one and ensures consistency. For example, every new account might automatically have CloudTrail enabled and restrictions applied. On the exam, remember that Control Tower simplifies account creation and governance at scale. Incident response in multi-account environments requires coordination. Centralized logging, cross-account IAM roles, and security services like Guard Duty and Security Hub make it possible to detect and respond to threats across all accounts. For example, if Guard Duty detects suspicious activity in one account, Security Hub can alert central teams who can act through cross-account roles. For the exam, know that AWS tools support organization-wide incident response. Compliance reporting also benefits from multi-account strategies. With CloudTrail organization trails and config conformance packs, organizations can demonstrate compliance across all accounts consistently. Reports can be generated from a central account, simplifying audits. For example, an auditor may review encryption compliance for all accounts from one location. On the exam, remember that AWS provides compliance tools that scale across organizations, making reporting more efficient. Exam focus in this domain emphasizes governance concepts rather than technical details. Expect questions about AWS organizations, SCPs, consolidated billing, and Control Tower. You may also be asked why multi-account setups are used or what benefits they provide. The key is to recognize how governance tools enforce policies, manage costs, and improve security across large environments. As organizations grow, their governance guardrails must evolve. A small startup might only need a handful of accounts with basic policies, while an enterprise may manage hundreds with strict compliance needs. AWS services like Organizations and Control Tower are designed to scale with these changes. Governance is not static. It is an ongoing process that adapts to organizational growth. For the exam, remember that governance practices must mature alongside cloud adoption. As we close this episode, remember that governance and multi-account strategies are the foundation for secure and compliant growth in AWS. Tools like AWS Organizations, SCPs, Control Tower, and centralized logging provide the structure to manage complexity at scale. By segmenting environments, isolating workloads, and enforcing policies, organizations can innovate confidently while maintaining control. For exam purposes, focus on the key services and benefits of governance. In practice, strong governance ensures that cloud adoption remains sustainable, secure, and aligned with business objectives. That concludes today's episode of the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode and visit us online at baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me for more resources, including news, mailing lists, YouTube videos, podcasts, and much more.